Let us pray. From our forests and parkland to our prairies and mountains comes the call of our land. From our farmsteads, towns, and cities comes the call of our people. That as legislators of this province, we act with responsibility and sensitivity. Lord, grant us the wisdom to meet such challenges. Amen. I wonder if honourable members could hold for just a moment waving at the chair. I'd like to wave back at you, but in just a moment. I have a statement to deliver with regard to procedures, and at the conclusion of the brief statement, copies will be distributed to all members. Although members are restricted to 2 notices of members' motions on the order paper at the same time, the Chair has taken under consideration the relationship of this rule to motions moved under Standing Order 40. A motion moved under Standing Order 40 requires unanimous consent of the Assembly and is only proceeded with if the member is able to persuade the House that there is urgent and pressing necessity for it to be dealt with. It is then debated forthwith without notice and does not go on the order paper. As a result, even if a member already has 2 notices of motion on the order paper, it is the ruling of the Chair that this does not prevent a member from making a motion under Standing Order 40. However, as to notice, the Chair would point out that Standing Order 40 says only that there is no requirement for notice under Standing Order 38, not that there is no requirement for notice at all. This is also in accordance with recent practice in this House. Therefore, the Chair will require at least that oral notice be given during the daily routine at notices of motions, and also that the motion is presented in writing to the Chair and the table when notice is given. Thank you, honourable members.
Introduction of visitors. Presenting petitions. Reading and receiving petitions. Presenting reports by standing and special committees. Notices of motions. Introduction of bills. Tabling returns and reports.
Thank you. The Minister of Energy, followed by the member for Edmonton Mill Woods.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to today table with you in the House the annual report for Alberta Energy and the Alberta Petroleum Incentives Program Fund. Additionally, at this time, Mr. Speaker, I would like to file with the Legislature 2 documents. One is the Oslo Alberta Oil Sands Project, and the second separate document is the agreement to build the Lloydminster Bi-Provincial Upgrader.
Thank you. Edmonton Mill Woods.
Mr. Speaker, at the request of my constituent, Mr. Terry Spencer, I'd like to file copies of letters with the Assembly, letters that he wrote to me of today's date, and an additional letter that he has addressed to the Minister responsible for the Workers' Compensation Board.
Minister of Health, followed by member for Cypress Redcliffe.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to table with the Assembly the following annual reports: the Alberta Cancer Board for the year ended March 31, 1988, the Alberta Association of Registered Nurses for the year ending September 30, 1988, the Alberta Association of Optometrists for the year ending December 31, 1987, the Alberta Dental Association for the year ending June 30, 1988, and the Health Facilities Review Committee for the year ending December 31, 88. Copies will be distributed to all members. In addition, I am filing a supplemental report to the Alberta Association of Registered Nurses annual report for the year ended September 30, 1987. These pages were missed from the previous submission tabled on April 8, 1988. Copies have been distributed to all MLAs directly.
Thank you. Member for Cypress Redcliffe.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to table the annual report for 1987-88 of the Alberta Water Resources Commission.
Introduction of special guests.
Minister of Recreation and Parks, followed by the member for Cardston.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to introduce to you and through you to the members of the Legislative Assembly a very special Albertan. Last year at this time, more than 50 disabled Alberta athletes were involved in the intensive training programs in preparation for Summer Paralympics in Seoul, Korea in October of 1988. One of the athletes that attended as a member of the women's basketball team, which placed fourth in the world, was Elaine L. Elaine is a member of the Board of Directors of the Paralympic Sports Association of Alberta. She is also a respected advocate of persons with disabilities and devotes a great deal of time and energy to ensuring that they have equal opportunities and access to recreational experiences and facilities. She's an inductee into the Alberta Sports Hall of Fame. Truly a great Albertan. I would ask all members of the Legislative Assembly, Mr. Speaker, to join with me in extending a traditional warm welcome to Elaine, who is in the members' gallery.
Cardston, followed by Edmonton Jasper Place, followed by Calgary Glenmore.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to introduce to you and through you to the Assembly 7 grade 9 students from the village of Hillspring in my constituency, and they're accompanied today by their principal, Mr. Thane Olson, parents Diane Smith and Monica Gibb. I'd ask them to stand and receive the warm welcome of this Assembly.
It's my pleasure to introduce a former mayor of the community of Pine Point in the Northwest Territories, an individual who was also the New Democrat candidate in the constituency of Lacombe in the last provincial election. Please welcome Mr. Cliff Reid.
Calgary Glenmore.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to introduce to you and through you to members of this Assembly 58 grade 6 students from the Chinook Park Elementary School. They're in the members and the public gallery, and with them is their three teachers, Mrs. Diane Fortin, Mrs. Donna Tabor, Mrs. Bonnie Kerr, and Secretary Mrs. Marshall. Would you please rise and receive the warm greeting from this Assembly?
Member for Highwood.
Mr. Speaker, today I'm very pleased to be able to introduce to you and through you to members of this Assembly 17 enthusiastic students from Cayley School. They've traveled all the way from the south to be here, and they are accompanied by their teacher and principal, Arnold Nugent. I'm additionally delighted because some 20 years ago I was their teacher in that same school. I would ask them to rise and receive the traditional welcome of this Assembly. Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to introduce to you and through you to the members of this Assembly 2 groups of students from the same school. We have 9 grade 10 students and 60 students from the junior high from grade 8 in both the members' galleries and in the public gallery. They have traveled all the way from High River. They represent Senator Riley School. They're accompanied by their teachers, Pat Dunn and Bill Young, and by parents Sylvia Moore and Janet Gardner. I, too, taught at that school and attended that school many years ago. I would ask them now to rise and receive the warm welcome of this Legislative Assembly.
Ministerial statements. Oral question period.
Mr. Speaker, to the Premier. Mr. Speaker, during the provincial election, we made the point that Alberta families are paying much too much tax in this province, simply because we have an unfair taxation system, because they won't tax our friends, corporations, and the well-to-do. Mr. Speaker, this government just cannot be trusted to stand up for Alberta families. And I want to say, Mr. Speaker, now Mr. Lougheed, the previous Premier of this province, is making the same point. Told the Calgary audience that governments are overtaxing individuals. Mr. Speaker, Alberta families are well aware of this because under Conservative governments they're paying $2,900 more than they used to, Mr. Speaker. My question to the Premier, is this self-evident fact come home to this Premier yet? Does he acknowledge and agree with Mr. Lougheed that his government is overtaxing Alberta families?
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member is referring to some statement made outside the House. Perhaps he's quoting it accurately, perhaps he isn't. I have no way of knowing. I would only say this to the honourable members, that tonight we will have the budget presented. I'm sure the honourable provincial treasurer will be going to some length on the matter of income taxes, the position that Albertans enjoy of having the lowest personal income taxes in Canada, no sales tax, the lowest tax regime in Canada, and the Albertans who have the greatest take-home pay in Canada.
Till after tonight.
I wouldn't clap too loud there. Not many of you are going to be around after. But my question to the Premier is he refused to answer the question, so I'll ask in a different way. Mr. Speaker, is the Premier saying that the Alberta taxation system, as it now stands, is fair to average taxpayers when they have to pay 95% of the tax in this province and corporations get away with less than 5%?
Shame.
It was interesting, Mr. Speaker, the other evening the honourable member from Red Deer dealt very effectively with this very matter in speaking to the throne speech. And I thought he presented the case in a much more effective way, a much more straightforward way. And I should just tell the honourable member that Albertans have the best tax regime in Canada.
Mr. Speaker, there's no doubt that they have the best tax regime for the well-to-do Conservatives in this province, Mr. Speaker. But my question then is to the Premier. Well, over the next year, because I don't think they have their political agenda ready for this budget, Mr. Speaker, but over the next year, would the Premier at least consider changing the mix and trying to tax some more from the corporations so there can be a refundable tax credit given to average families? He talks about the family, do something about it.
Mr. Speaker, it's ironic the honourable member is raising the matter today before the provincial treasurer presents his budget. But as you would expect, Mr. Speaker, on all matters having to do with budgets, the government constantly reviews, assesses, and makes changes when they feel they're necessary.
Second main question, Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to designate my second question to the member from Calgary Mountain View.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Alberta Department of Tourism has given $100,000 of a promised $200,000 grant to the organizers of a now-defunct chess tournament in Calgary. One of the people associated with the organizers of this event was the minister's brother. Another is a Mr. John Emer, who was the subject of an NBC documentary a few weeks ago looking into a number of scams that have been pulled off in the United States. To the Minister of Tourism, why did his department not look more carefully into this application and pick up on the fact that they were using taxpayers' money to buy the equivalent of swampland in Florida?
Mr. Speaker, it is true that the government did participate with Global Chess Group, Inc., which was later taken over by another group. We were working with the Calgary Tourism and Convention Bureau in the City of Calgary, and we help other communities when they identify a major project. And both the city and ourselves were part and parcel of supporting this major event, and it's unfortunate that it's not going to take place. The innuendos that the member brings forward, though I wish he would give us something of substantial in writing so we can give it to our lawyers, because this file has definitely been turned over to them.
Well, I understand, Mr. Speaker, that typically the promoter banked on his connections with people of standing in the community in order to gain respect and credibility for his sting operations. To the minister, in view of this, how much influence did his brother have in getting this particular grant approved by his department?
Checkmate.
Mr. Speaker, as most of us could read the article in the Herald, which I sort of classified as yellow-bellied journalism and socialistic, but other than that, as far as that same article quoted very clearly, where my deputy was quoted in it, that at no time was my brother involved with reference to the grant or grant application, and many other volunteers were supporting this project. I understand that it's sad to see it go by the wayside, but we do have some very, very many successful ones, Mr. Speaker, and I could list them off if you want the good stories.
Mr. Speaker, to the Premier, how is it that ordinary Albertans have to go through all kinds of red tape and hoops to get money from this government when people with connections to ministers of this government can easily walk in, walk out, and walk away with up to $200,000?
Mr. Speaker, such a question placed in the way the member has is of no credit to him, and frankly does not require the dignity of an answer.
Leader of the Liberal Party, followed by the member for Clover Bar.
Mr. Speaker, my question is to the minister responsible for the Workmen's Compensation Board. It is now clear from information that we have that the minister has released confidential information. And my question is, who gave him the information, and under what authority was that information given to him regarding the Spencer matter?
Thank you, honourable member. The question is entirely out of order. Order, please. The matter is going to be dealt with as signified to the House yesterday. The point of privilege as raised by the honourable member himself. The matter will be dealt with at the end of question period today, and there will be no more questions on this issue today. You've already asked your first question. I'd be interested in what your supplementary is that's related to some other issue related to that department.
Please.
Well, you're not getting it right at the moment. Thanks very much. Member?
Point of order. It is my understanding under the standing orders, and Beauchesne, correct me if I'm wrong, sir, that this is with respect to the ruling that, Mr. Speaker, that I have the right to withdraw the request for action under privilege, and that could still happen following this question period.
There's been no notification. There's been no notification whatsoever in that line given to the chair. And therefore, as with regard to the ruling yesterday, it was the chair's intention to have the matter of privilege dealt with yesterday. The minister, one party was not able to be present. The declaration was given to the House that it would be dealt with today. The whole matter is with regard to anticipation of what's later to take place in the day. Standing Order 23E and Beauchesne 409 subsection 12 are the relevant spots. So therefore, the chair will now recognize the member for Clover Bar.
Order, please. Order.
Clover Bar. Clover Bar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is directed to the Honourable Minister of Tourism.
Point of order is taken for the end of question period. Clover Bar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm elated about the recent announcement by Canadian Pacific about the restoration of the McDonald Hotel. it appears that there has been extremely hard work by the Minister and, in large part, the present Mayor of the City of Edmonton to bring this excellent news to us. I'm providing this recognition to the members of this Assembly since there is now in progress a plan for restoration of the MacDonald, rather than the controversy, the on-again, off-again situation that happened in the past, which resulted from the abysmal bungling efforts of the former mayor of the City of Edmonton, who now sits in this Assembly as the honourable member for Edmonton Glengarry. Would the Minister share with the Assembly information about the details of the proposed restoration of the MacDonald Hotel, as well as...
Honourable member, thank you. Save some for a supplementary. Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it is with indeed pleasure to talk about the restoration of the MacDonald Hotel. It's about $20 million that will be spent on that restoration. It will be definitely a tourism resort hotel with open garden space around it, tennis courts, major athletic facilities within it. And the City of Edmonton had placed on the building and several rooms within it historic resource identity, and they will be restoring several rooms to maintain them in the original facade. Very positive project.
Mr. Chairman, the project has been, as I mentioned, on again, off again. Is there some assurance that this project will proceed this time around? Is there some assurance of involvement by this government, a partnership amongst other governments, municipal and provincial and federal, in order to assure that the development will proceed to provide some potential for tourism in this area?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, the Canadian Pacific Hotels have made a commitment of $500 million to be spent throughout Canada in all of their hotels. This $20 million is going to upgrade the MacDonald Hotel, but they also announced that they are building a conference center at Banff, another conference center at Lake Louise, and they've already upgraded the rooms in both of those hotels. They have 9 facilities in the province, and they've already spent out of the $500 million, 120 in Alberta, and plan to spend another $100 million in the next couple of years. I think they're very good corporate citizens. They'll be expanding their golf course in Jasper, for instance. They've already expanded their golf facilities in Banff, and
Thank you, honourable member. Let's keep going. Final supplementary. Thank you. Member for Edmonton Mill Woods, followed by Calgary Northwest, then followed by Lloydminster.
Mr. Speaker, last week we discovered that the minister responsible for the Workers' Compensation Board can't be trusted to appoint even a single injured worker to the board of directors of that particular agency. And this week we discovered that we can't trust him either to even respect the confidentiality provisions of the Workers' Compensation Act. And so I want to ask the minister sincerely if he would stand in his place today and offer an apology to my constituent, Mr. Spencer, for violating his fundamental rights. Would he do that?
All right, thank you. After question period for the point of order, but this question is out of order. What's the supplementary? Why is it out of order is because it's a matter that's to be raised with regard to point of privilege, because this is also part of the issue. Thank you, honourable members. The chair recognizes Edmonton Mill Woods on a succinct supplementary with regard to the department.
I'd like to ask the minister then, is it now his policy to release public information, confidential information publicly against any injured worker who dares to challenge the policies of his government and the Workers' Compensation Board? Is that now his policy?
Mr. Speaker, it's never my intention, and never was, never will be, and hasn't today, to release any confidential information on any worker.
Mr. Speaker, to the Premier, given that when a minister violates confidential provisions of legislation in this province, that it compromises the trust that Albertans have in the portfolio and in the minister that he or she is responsible for, can the Premier indicate that he's going to try to re-establish some integrity in the provincial cabinet, either by bringing in some new rules that cabinet ministers will have to follow, or in the case of the minister for the WCB, to ask him to resign?
Order, please. With due respect to the Premier, the first question, but not the second. The second relates to the matter of privilege. Thank you. First question.
Would I just make the point, Mr. Speaker, that the member is trying to create a hypothetical allegation which I would not feel is proper even to deal with.
Final. Sorry. Member for Calgary Northwest. Calgary Northwest.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. One of the more common themes that I encountered during the election campaign was the electorate's growing distrust and skepticism with the provincial government as a result of pork barreling and patronage. Now we have a family member of the Minister of Tourism that has been involved in a chess tournament that received $100,000 worth of grants from the department. $100,000 is a hefty amount of taxpayer dollars to be granted on a project. My question to the Minister of Tourism: will the Minister please describe what mechanisms are in place for screening initial grant applications and then monitoring the project as it progresses to assure that taxpayers' money is invested wisely and fairly?
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member's preliminary opening remarks are very non-factual. As far as the policy, any application comes forward, the department does do a good screening. In this case, in cooperation with the City of Calgary and the Calgary Tourism Convention Authority, we approved ours only after the city had approved theirs. Our department screens and worked with the proponents. A similar function had formerly taken place in New Brunswick that became very, very successful. And in that case, the city of St. John's had spent $500,000 in the previous year for a very similar event. It's unfortunate that these proponents did not get their corporate sponsorship as they budgeted for and could not put their portion up, but I think the city and our department did our share as far as trying to make a very successful event out of it by making the advances under contract. And in each and every case before they advanced, current status of the project was in place. It's unfortunate that the Alberta Commercial Travelers could not finalize the changes they wished to have with Irma Controlla and pulled out of the project as being the project sponsors, which caused the city to pull out, and we followed suit.
Thank you. Could the Minister please describe, you mentioned earlier in your House that your brother did not directly make the grant application. Could the Minister describe who it was who actually made the grant application to your office?
Mr. Speaker, Global Chess Group Inc., Mr. Bob Hamilton, who is part and parcel of the group that did put the event on in New Brunswick, was the first proponent and made the application, I believe, under that corporate name. It was later the whole contract was taken over by the group I previously mentioned, Controlla, or Irma Controlla, and that was approved both by the city and the Calgary Convention Authority and ourselves.
Is it the present mayor?
My third question is directed to the Premier. Will the government, and specifically the Premier, move to put in place a concise and effective conflict of interest parameters that would outline the guidelines of conduct for cabinet ministers and their relatives?
and their relatives.
Mr. Speaker, I draw it to the honourable member's attention that we operate under a code of conduct and ethics that is established by this Assembly under the Legislative Assembly Act, and that the honourable member should review that legislation.
Thank you. Member for Lloydminster, followed by Edmonton Calder, followed by Edmonton Meadowlark.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. September the 7th was, or the 2nd rather, was a historic day for Canada, and especially Lloydminster and area residents, with the announcement of the bi-provincial upgrader in cooperation with the three progressive conservative governments, namely the federal, Saskatchewan, and Alberta, with the private sector partner, Husky. Thank you very much. My question is to the Minister of Energy. Can the Minister advise the House of what progress has been made on the Lloydminster upgrader to this date?
Well, I'd be pleased to, Mr. Speaker. There has been excellent progress made with the bi-provincial upgrader. It is on schedule, and it has named its project manager, and I understand that they have starting to move topsoil from the site, and I understand that that part of the preparation will be done in fall of '89. Should also point out, Mr. Speaker, that the bid packages have been scaled down so that local contractors on both sides of the provincial border can meaningfully participate in the construction of the plant.
Supplementary, Mr. Speaker, does the agreement ensure that whenever possible, local businesses will be utilized in the area?
Mr. Speaker, not only are the packages packaged in a way that local Alberta and Saskatchewan businesses can participate in the construction, there is also a real effort on behalf of Husky, the operator, and the Chamber of Commerce in the Lloydminster area, working with local residents, local businesses, so that they can participate, as well as local employment in the Lloydminster area.
Final supplementary, Mr. Speaker. What is the projected employment in 90 and 91?
Well, Mr. Speaker, as I recall from the information provided by Husky when they put together their information package, they projected that through all phases of the construction of the plant would be in the area of about 5,000 to 6,000 people.
Member for Edmonton Calder, followed by Edmonton Meadowlark.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This province continues to have the lowest standards in Canada in not requiring training for childcare workers, even when 2 years ago this government's own advisory council on women's issues recommended formal training. We have been waiting far too long, but finally, Mr. Speaker, finally, we see it in the throne speech. They have made a promise to bring in training requirements. To the Minister of Social Services, because this government continuously breaks promises, when specifically is this minister going to keep this particular promise and bring in these training requirements?
Well, Mr. Speaker, first of all, I'm not aware of any promises that this government has broken. I would want to state very clearly that when this government makes a commitment, we stand behind our commitments. Mr. Speaker, the member mentioned herself, and she's quite right, that the commitment is in the throne speech of February the 17th. This minister stands behind that commitment, and we can look forward to the standards being implemented, hopefully sometime late this fall.
Actually, already made the cabinet. Supplementary to the minister then, Mr. Speaker. We have been waiting and waiting, so we'll be watching to see if that, in fact, comes to be in the fall.
You bet.
Will the minister ensure, then, to this Assembly that the requirements will be post-secondary training requirements as recommended in the report by the Advisory Council on Women's Issues?
Mr. Speaker, I would want to assure the member opposite that it is the intention of this government to consult with parents, to consult with daycare operators, to consult with daycare givers, and once we've had an opportunity of completing that process, and in cooperation with them, we'll be introducing our standards at that time.
Final supplementary, Mr. Speaker, to the Minister. Well, it seems like we're going to just keep waiting and waiting.
No standard.
In view of the fact that wages for childcare workers in Alberta continue to be deplorably low, will the Minister recognize the value of these workers and subsidize the wages of childcare workers that are trained in non-profit centres so that they can increase their standard of living?
Mr. Speaker, again, our commitment to providing daycare opportunities for the people of Alberta is amongst the highest in Canada. We'll continue to support parents in making their choices, and as it relates to the salaries themselves, as the honourable member knows, those are set.
Order, please. The chair's had a little trouble, and maybe there's something wrong with the sound system or there's too much babble in the House. Minister, please continue.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it is difficult to hear at times. It seems that they don't ask tempting, Mr. Speaker, but to finish the answer, again, we'll continue to support choices for the parents of children in this province, and we'll continue our commitment as it relates to the funding of these agencies.
Edmonton Meadowlark, followed by Vegreville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on February 23rd, this government made a commitment to funding local citizen participation in some kind of public hearings process for the Athabasca pulp mill. Yesterday, the minister was less clear. He said on the one hand he couldn't see why government should have to pay for this public participation, and on the other hand he was extremely uncertain as to whether or not he could negotiate with the company to see that they would pay for this public participation. To the Minister of Environment, is this government going to live up to its commitment of February 23rd and fund this public participation, or isn't it?
Mr. Speaker, to the honourable member, the answer is yes, we will fund that process. In answer to the question that was delivered yesterday, the question was relative to the preparation of environmental impact assessment documents and paying for interveners in the process. We will fund the Citizens Advisory Group that will be conducting the hearings in Athabasca.
Mr. Speaker, there is a fundamental difference between the board that will listen to the review, the Citizens Advisory Board, and funding interveners into that process. Is the minister so unclear on what an environmental impact assessment process is that he cannot draw this distinction between the review board and public participants who would like to present to that review board? Can he not even draw that distinction?
A little more cup.
Mr. Speaker, yes, I can.
Well, maybe you should start to do it. Is the minister not aware that the Energy Resources Conservation Board automatically pays for public participants to participate in public hearings and then, without question, bills that cost back to the proponent companies? And will the minister exercise whatever authority he has to make the company, in this case, pay for that public participation?
Mr. Speaker, I guess now I'm saying it for about the 14th time. The process relative to environmental impact assessments will be reviewed. Part of that review will be to examine the performance of the Citizens Advisory Board that will be established relative to the Alberta Pacific project in Athabasca Lac La Biche. I think I've said that at least on 13 or 12 other occasions in this assembly, and if anyone is confused or simply doesn't have the ability to understand or simply doesn't want to understand, it's the honourable member from Meadowlark.
Thank you. Following members, if there is time. Vegreville, Drayton Valley, Edmonton Jasper Place, Edmonton Whitemud, Edmonton Avonmore, Bow Valley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Albertans know from experience that Conservative governments can't be trusted to keep the promises they make at election time. And one recent example is the $850 million drought assistance program promised by the Mulroney Conservatives during last fall's election. Mr. Mulroney committed only $425 million to this program, apparently hoping that provincial governments would fund the balance. To the Associate Minister of Agriculture, what negotiations have taken place between this government and her cousins in Ottawa on the drought assistance program?
Mr. Speaker, I'd be pleased to take that question on notice for the Minister of Agriculture.
Well, while we're in the process of taking questions under advisement, perhaps the Minister could answer this question. She must realize that another commitment made by Mr. Mulroney at that time was to provide that much-needed cash for drought-stricken farmers early in the new year. Most of that money hasn't arrived and won't for several months, and I'm wondering what action this government is taking to make sure that Alberta farmers who suffered the ravages of drought get that money when they need it.
Mr. Speaker, this government has made a very strong commitment to the farmers of Alberta in drought, and if the member would like the list of what we have done as a provincial government, I would be happy to supply it to him. The drought program that the member alludes to is a federal program. If he wants further information on the discussions, I would be happy to take it on notice for the minister.
Well, it's a federal program, but it impacts on Alberta producers, and I'm wondering how the Associate Minister can justify this complacency when she knows that Alberta farmers were promised that money last fall, needed it in the winter, and they're not going to get it till sometime late in summer.
Mr. Speaker, I can assure you that this minister is not complacent about Alberta farmers. And this was a federal program. The drought assistance program that he is alluding to was announced by the federal government, funded by the federal government, and if he would like more information on it, I will take it on notice.
Drayton Valley, Edmonton Jasper Place.
Mr. Speaker, to the Deputy Premier, we have expressed some serious concerns, humanitarian concerns in this House in the last few days about the safety and the condition of students and relatives that got caught in the turmoil in China, and I was just wondering, do you have an update on that? Can you give us any later information on that?
Mr. Speaker, this serious issue obviously concerns a number of Alberta families. I've been in conversation again today, as I promised I would do, with the Minister of State for External Affairs relative to the situation with regard to Albertans in Heilongjiang province. I can advise members of the Assembly that the Government of Canada is making arrangements to bring the students and others who are now identified as being in Harbin or vicinity home at the earliest possible opportunity. They're awaiting the permission of the government of the People's Republic of China to bring a plane into Harbin, where, by the way, jets can land. The progress is good. I could also say that the officials of the Foreign Affairs Agency, Bureau of the province of Heilongjiang are working closely in cooperation with officials of my department and have been in close consultation and have promised safety to the students, their advisors, and other Alberta citizens now in Harbin.
For Edmonton Jasper Place, followed by Edmonton Whitemud, followed by Edmonton Avonmore.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We heard yesterday and again today that the minister is going to take no action whatever to secure funding for interveners seeking to get answers to their questions about the Alberta Pacific project. Now I've learned that he's attending a rally this weekend promoting by business interests who want quick approval of that project from this government. I know that he's covered his track by hastily arranging a meeting with some farmers, but I think he'd have to agree that these events are not the same. And this government can't be trusted to provide a fair mechanism for involvement in the process. I would like to know if the minister isn't concerned that he might have blown his cover as the neutral licensing authority by attending the rally of persons who want quick approval of the project.
Mr. Speaker, I was invited to the Athabasca region by the MLA for that constituency, And I'm proud to go up there to talk to not only those who support sustained economic development in the region and to provide jobs, but to listen to those with environmental concerns. And part of the visit will include a trip to the Fort McKay Band further downstream and to listen to their concerns. And it might interest the honourable member from Jasper Place to know that on the 19th of this month, I will be meeting with the Southern Friends of the North, who have some concerns at a rally over the same pulp mill. And I have no problems in listening to all sides of the situation, which is more, Mr. Speaker, than can be said for the honourable member from Jasper Place.
People who have concerns get private meetings. People who support the project get rallies. I would like to know why the minister refused to attend a similar public meeting sponsored by the Friends of the North on May the 18th at Knox Metropolitan Church if he wants to be even-handed in the process.
Mr. Speaker, I was on my way to Calgary, and fortunately I left that particular evening where I had some commitments. And secondly, I wasn't invited specifically to that meeting. I was handed a poster announcing that the meeting was going to take place. But I will repeat once again, I have been invited and I will be attending a meeting being sponsored in Calgary by a group called the Southern Friends of the North, who have the same goals as the Friends of the North.
Well, if the minister wasn't invited to that meeting, why was his letter read out saying that he couldn't be there?
Here's a question.
I would like to know then why the minister failed to attend a similar meeting at the University of Calgary on April 26th.
Mr. Speaker, I was indeed invited to that particular meeting. I had been in office precisely 5-6 days, I believe. I can't recall when the swearing in was. And the writer of that particular letter acknowledged that in fact it would be more appropriate if we were to have a meeting later on down the road, and that's precisely the kind of meeting I'm going to be attending on the 19th.
Edmonton Whitemud, Edmonton Avonmore, Bow Valley.
Mr. Speaker, this government continues to operate in a secretive and private manner while purporting to be open and responsive, yet the Premier has condoned the process that ensures that Albertans are not aware of what information is being considered in the formulation of recommendations and decisions. Mr. Speaker, my question is to the Premier. Is the Premier aware that the Premier's Council on the Status of Disabled or on the Status of Persons with Disabilities is holding public consultations, and I stress public consultations taken from the press release issued by the government itself when I refer to the term public consultations, yet these so-called public consultations are being held in private?
Mr. Speaker, I'm not sure if the honourable member is accurate. We had the chairman of the Premier's Council on status of persons with disabilities in the House the other day. I can contact him and check on whether the honourable member is accurate and whether, in fact, there are good reasons for doing what they're doing.
Mr. Speaker, is the Premier aware that in this process, which I am accurate on, they are in fact being held in private, but while they are being held in private, is the Premier aware that non-profit organizations advocating for the disabled have been denied the right to attend these so-called public consultation hearings, so that non-profit organizations who wish to monitor the submissions to that council and the presenters who wish to make a public statement do not have the opportunity to do so because of the private nature of the so-called...
This is quite, I think the point is across in the supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, as I said in the reply to the first question, I will talk to the chairman This is a council that is made up of chairmen and public members who make decisions as a council. I'm curious as to why they are conducting their meetings in the way they are. There may well be very good reasons. And I would suggest to the honourable member that being a public body that he might well contact them himself.
Mr. Speaker, in view of the status of the council being a Premier's Council, not a public council, but a Premier's Council, will the Premier undertake to instruct his advisory council, his Premier's Council, to open its hearings to the public and to produce a public report on its findings? Can we have those assurances, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Premier?
Mr. Speaker, obviously the honourable member knows that this is a public council. It may have a name indicating the high importance that we place on it as a government, and I would say to the honourable member that he should contact them himself, and I answered previously that I would talk to them because I'm curious as to the conduct of their meetings as well.
Okay. Edmonton Avonmore, followed by Bow Valley, followed by Calgary McKnight.
Mr. Speaker, in the throne speeches of February 17th and June 1st, the government acknowledged the need to combat the devastating effects of family violence. And on Tuesday, the Minister of Social Services emphasized the value of involvement of the volunteer sector in the delivery of the services. To the Minister of Social Services, why has the Minister contradicted his own words and broken his promises by withdrawing funding for the Grand Prairie Treatment Program for Men Who Batter, which is a volunteer sector program and badly needed in Northern Alberta?
Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Family and Social Services has broken no promises.
It's a broken record.
Mr. Speaker, then how does the minister suggest that he is meeting his commitment to combat the devastating effects of family violence, because intervention with batterers is the only way to break the cycle of violence?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Family and Social Services shares the honourable member's concern over family violence. And again, I would refer to our throne speech of February the 17th, where our government makes a commitment to introduce new initiatives to combat this threat will be proposed, and additional support will be provided to our network of family shelters.
Mr. Speaker, Grand Prairie already has a successful program. The minister's department has withdrawn funding since the February throne speech and the June throne speech. How can he say that he has a commitment to combating the effects of family violence when he withdraws funding from a program that will combat it?
Well, Mr. Speaker, again, our commitment to women's shelters in this province is second to none in the nation, and the programs that we continue to add and to build into that, Mr. Speaker, they sure don't like to listen when they ask a question. Mr. Speaker, we'll continue to fight family violence in this province. We'll continue to work with the communities across this province, and we'll continue to work with the families in this province.
Member for Bow Valley. Bow Valley.
Mr. Speaker, my question is to the Honourable Minister of Energy. And, Mr. Speaker, the level and stability of international oil prices is critical to the activity of the Alberta gas and oil industry. OPEC recently concluded their meetings to establish production quotas for the remainder of this year. Could the Minister advise the House on the results of the meeting and the implications on Alberta gas and oil industry?
Mr. Speaker, the actions of OPEC have a very important effect on this province and this country in terms of production and price. And we were pleased to learn yesterday that at their meetings in Vienna, the member nations were able to agree on a production quota increase of 1 million barrels a day to 19.5 million barrels a day. I guess the objective, Mr. Speaker, is quite obvious, and that is that the quota is set at a level that is commensurate with the world demand for oil, the free world demand for oil, and as long as the consumption, the countries that consume OPEC oil are able to absorb the increase in the quota, I think that we'll see stable prices.
Time for question period has expired. Might we have unanimous consent to complete this series of questions? Opposed? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Bow Valley.
Well, looking at the long-term impact of the OPEC agreement, Mr. Speaker, what's the outlook for the rest of this year?
Mr. Speaker, I believe that the provincial treasurer in his budget address this evening in this assembly will deal with the outlook for the balance of this year and the coming second quarter of 1990. I should say that the market reaction was mixed to the increase in quota. It opened this morning at 1967 U.S., West Texas Intermediate, and that is down from 1970. There was a slight slide in the price. There was an announcement by Kuwait, Mr. Speaker, one of the member nations of OPEC that continue to produce over and above their quota. That statement had indicated that they will do their level best to live within the quota assigned to them at OPEC. And as a result of that, I understand that the price of oil, U.S. price of oil, recovered to just over $20 U.S. I think that that's certainly an important sign that there is the price has responded in effect positively to what OPEC accomplished yesterday.
Final supplementary, Mr. Speaker. Considering the OPEC meeting yesterday and the outlook for the rest of the year, what's the impact on Alberta going to be?
Mr. Speaker, as I recall, the average price this year has been about $19.50 U.S. West Texas Intermediate. And so that is positive. Actually, the current price today, as I indicated, is higher than the average price for the first part of this year. And so it's expected to see a little softening in the next quarter, which is traditional, seasonal, Mr. Speaker, and then further strengthening towards the end of the year. As I've indicated, and as the provincial treasurer will touch on this evening, I think the prospects for strong price and relative stability within OPEC, together, Mr. Speaker, with a growth in U.S. demand and the OEC demand, I think has a very positive impact and outlook for the sale of Alberta crude oil in the coming year.
The chair would suggest a temporary one-day procedure to the House that chairs received at least 4 notes with regard to the introduction of special visitors. And since we anticipate some time to be taken up with regard to points of order of question period as well as points of privilege, or purported point of privilege, I wonder if on this one occasion we might have unanimous consent for the introduction of visitors. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Minister of Career Development and Employment.
Mr. Speaker, it's indeed a pleasure for me today to be able to introduce to you and to members of the legislature a group of some, I believe, 41 grade 10 students from the Bicycle Community School. Mr. Speaker, they are accompanied by teachers Deborah Anderson, Doug McCullough, parents Judy Adams, Val McLennan, and Brian Carnes. They're seated in the members' gallery. I'm going to be looking forward to seeing them sometime later this afternoon for pictures in the visit. Would they kindly rise now and receive the warm welcome of this assembly?
Minister of Technology, Research and Telecommunications.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is a real pleasure for me to introduce to you and through you to the members of the Assembly 2 very special people in the life of our head page, Catherine Wallace. namely her grandmother, Mrs. Dorothy Wallace, from Calgary, whom I have known for many years, and her mother, Mrs. Sarah Wallace, also from Calgary. And ask them to rise, receive the welcome of the Assembly. Mrs. Gallery.
Transportation and Utilities, followed by Recreation and Parks.
Mr. Speaker, it's my pleasure to introduce to you and through you to the members of this legislature a group of 10 students from the Kennedy Elementary School in Grimshaw, and I believe they're in grade 5. They're accompanied by their teacher, Mrs. Jody Schroeder, and parent, Mrs. Faye Wald, and I would ask them to rise and receive the warm welcome of this assembly.
Minister of Recreation and Parks.
Mr. Speaker, it's my pleasure to introduce to you and to the members of the Legislative Assembly a group that represent the greatest and most important resource that we have in the Vermilion Viking constituency, our students and our youth. There are 33 students from grade 6 of the Manville School. They're accompanied today by their parents, Mrs. Ross, Mrs. McDonald, Mrs. McLaughlin, and Mrs. Sabotis. Teachers, Mrs. Chomlak and Mrs. Kearns, and their bus driver, Mr. Swanson. They are seated in the members' gallery, and I would ask that they stand and receive the warm welcome of this House.
Points of order. The chair recognizes or has made notations Edmonton Glengarry and the Minister of Advanced Education. Member for Edmonton Glengarry.
Mr. Speaker, I wonder if you would be kind enough to allow my colleague, the member from Calgary Buffalo, to deal with the point of order.
Order. Order. The chair will indeed allow it, but is somewhat taken aback to discover that the member for Calgary Buffalo is so shy and retiring. Please proceed.
We're rolling in the big guns.
Mr. Speaker, the ruling that you dealt with raised the question of anticipation, and it is indeed a somewhat difficult area, and we've seen today in particular evidence of how difficult it is in the sense that Glengarry's question, and not just question but series, was ruled out of order, whereas on the other hand a question from Edmonton Millwood, was part of his series was in fact allowed when it dealt with somewhat along the lines of the same topic. Now this is an area that raises the same types of difficulties that one has when you're dealing with a question where an issue is under litigation, and some questions may be in the heart of litigation and others aren't. And of course, I think members of the House would grasp for some form of principle and guidance when dealing with these things, particularly when we are faced, as we were in this particular instance, with the prospect of not only losing the immediate question, but the whole series. Now, the Speaker has cited Beauchesne, which states in Section 409.12 that questions should not anticipate a debate scheduled for the day, but should be reserved for the debate. But my attention focuses on the concept of debate itself, and wondering in what sense, in what conditions questions would be considered to relate to debate itself, as opposed to something which may be on the same topic but not relate to debate. Now in this instance I would submit that the question and issue, being one that is not in any way argumentative or suggestive in itself, but merely requesting simple information, and in this instance information with respect to what types of information the minister may have received and when, is certainly within the parameters of what should be allowed, because during a debate itself, debate is not a question period, and although presumably a question may be raised, debate is in the nature of debate and not one of question and answer. And similarly, Rule 23E of the standing orders talks about anticipating contrary to good parliamentary practice any matter already on the order paper. And the question arises as to what is good parliamentary practice. Apparently, the implication is there that some forms of question may be within the bounds of good parliamentary practice. And of course, we've seen in the case of Edmonton Millwoods that he succeeded. So the bottom line, Mr. Speaker, would be a request to have from the Speaker some guidance, some form of principle whereby we, the members, would be able to ascertain when we're getting into those very difficult waters and are going to have some problem. Now, finally, the more serious aspect of this, of course, is that the honourable member from Glengarry was deprived not just of the one question that he asked, but the whole series. And one wonders on what principle, on what basis that happens from time to time, and other times it doesn't. Yesterday, a question was ruled out of order and the series continued. In this instance, the initial opening question of Edmonton Millwoods was ruled out of order. His series continued, but not for Edmonton Glengarry. And I think the members of this House can rightfully have their noses out of joint when on a basis totally lacking any visible principle, a decision is made to deprive one of a right which is not a right to be exercised on one's own behalf, but a right exercised in the fulfillment of our duties as members of the legislature to raise public issues, not for ourselves, but in terms of the public interest. And that hollers out for some principle and rationale and explanation, Mr. Speaker, particularly in this instance.
Totally agreed. The Government House Leader. Speaker, silence. I'm not so sure that the honourable member from Glengarry hired the best lawyer to cite the case. But he did his best, but Mr. Speaker, I don't know whether it's unparliamentary to call it convoluted flapdoodle, but that's exactly what it sounded like to me. Mr. Speaker, if the honourable member wants to, and this applies, I think, to as well, because it was made reference to the member for Millwoods. Clearly, this issue of privilege was on notice for consideration in Standing Order 23E. We've known about it for 2 days. The honourable member for Glengarry raised it originally. It was also referred to again yesterday. And if the honourable member for Millwoods is more skillful in framing a supplementary question, having been ruled out of order on the principal question, than the honourable member from Glengarry, surely that is not the... Oh, the Speaker invited the honourable member from Glengarry to try and phrase a supplementary. And I think that Hansard will show that. And if he wasn't able to do so effectively, well, surely that's not the fault of the honourable member for Millwoods, who was able to do so.
Thank you. Edmonton Highlands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On this issue, I would just like to point out a couple of things relating to the protected persons provision in the 6th edition. I sort of anticipated that this might happen, and so I looked this up in advance and realized that under protected persons, the issue is not spelled out when it comes to the sub judice convention in the way that it was in the 5th edition. And so I would like to make the following case with respect to the entire point of order. Under Protected Persons 6th edition, it says, all references to judges and courts of justice of the nature of personal attack and censure have always been considered unparliamentary, and it goes on to, pardon me? Oh, I'm sorry, 493. It goes on to talk basically about the court system. Now, of course, it's not clear in what way that would apply to our assembly or to any Parliament. So I believe that we're forced back now to the 5th edition of Beauchesne, section 335, which commences the sub judice convention through 339. And if I can be permitted, 335 says members are expected to refrain from discussing matters that are before the courts or tribunals which are courts of record. It may be reasonably construed that ultimately, if a matter of privilege is decided at the prima facie level and then handed to the Privileges and Elections Committee, in fact, in history, this used to be and can be, at the time of the will of the Assembly, considered a court of tribunal. I think that is the common parliamentary understanding, Mr. Speaker. But until the matter is actually ruled on as a prima facie case of privilege and then handed over to this court, it seems to me that the matter is not one that would fall under the sub judice convention. Logically, then, the only alternative for using this notion, which I understand you did not specifically address, but you did with respect to citing Section 493 of the 6th edition, logically, then, the only other person who could be prejudiced by overhearing a discussion or questions on the matter, according to 335 and 339 of the 5th edition, I'm sorry this is so complicated, would be you yourself, Mr. Speaker. And under the circumstances, seeing as how you are in the chair, you are the one who decides whether or not the prima facie case exists and all the rest of it, and given the fact that you're here every day and listen to a lot of what goes on, it would hardly be fair, I believe, for anybody to assume that you would be unduly influenced by those questions or the discussion. That's not a joke. I mean, quite frankly, we have to be realistic and logical about this. So what I'm arguing is that I believe technically, if we go back to these rules, and not to mention the standing orders, that in fact it would be in order to discuss the matter raised by, in this instance, the member from Millwoods, but also related to Glengarry's questions, until the ruling has been determined. I'd make one final note, Mr. Speaker, and that is that while votes and proceedings indicated on Wednesday that an issue of privilege had been raised, as there was no response to it yesterday, it did not appear on the order paper, and therefore neither would the anticipation rule apply, I would argue. Thank you.
Thank you, honourable members, for the input. The number of things that have occurred. First of all, the matter of privilege is deemed in Parliament to be so serious and so rare an issue to be raised that it then brings into vogue a whole another sense of what is indeed, if you will, sacrosanct in dealing with the House. Because to raise a matter of privilege is the most serious matter that can indeed be raised in any legislature. And so it should not be brought forward in any flippant way, and I certainly don't believe that it has. But it's such a serious matter that it then brings into effect other kinds of rules with regard to anticipation or so forth, relevancy and debate. The chair is not in any way wishing to constrain what occurs in question period as to the issues or the questions at all. And when the chair received notice of this issue of privilege the other day, there was an immediate concern, all right, then now this is going to bring some constraints with regard to this particular issue until such time as the House can hear the matter and that can be dealt with. It was the chair's intention to have the matter fully discussed earlier in this week. And indeed, that was to have been done yesterday. Circumstances prevailed whereby it was not able to be dealt with yesterday. And so it meant that while we intended to deal with it, that yesterday then a series of questions with regard to the issue were indeed ruled out of order by the chair with regard to these various citations as given earlier. The chair then also gave notice, aside from whether it had been printed or not, gave notice that indeed the matter would be dealt with on this day, and in fact sent instructions to the minister's office that he must indeed be in the House on this day or the matter would indeed proceed. Once again, the chair is not happy at having to tie up or constrain question period in any manner, but yesterday we know full well that two members were called to order with regard to questions related to the issue before us with WCB and the aggrieved citizen at large. Yesterday, the chair felt that when the member for Edmonton Glengarry was called to order for raising the matter, that other members would indeed take heed of that and not proceed to ask similar questions. Such was not the case, and the chair then had to call to order the member for Edmonton Mill Woods. Yesterday, again, it was indeed pointed out the matter of privilege would be listened to on this date. That then brought into focus, again, the fact that questions would not be entertained with regard to the specifics of the issue, as far as the chair could figure them out to be. Thank you. So then we come to the matter of the leader of the Liberal Party, who raised the issue, and in the opinion of the chair, that the focus of the question was indeed such that it would, to some degree, color perhaps the evidence that, or the contention that would be made later this afternoon by the member from Edmonton Glengarry, or any information that might come or comment by the Minister of Workers' Compensation, or any other members who would then participate in that debate. Therefore, that question was called to order. The chair then pointed out, or it was that the member could frame other questions of a general nature with regard to that department. That did not occur. Instead, we found ourselves having a point of order and some comment made about withdrawing the point of privilege. And since in question period we're not to be consuming the time of the House with the points of order, or in this case this interesting suggestion of withdrawing the matter of privilege, then the chair was not prepared to go further at that time, and felt that as the member did not bring forth a supplementary, that then the chair went one stage forward and recognized the next member. Now, perhaps the chair moved too quickly in that. That's for the opinion of the House, but nevertheless, in question period, as you all know, things tend to happen at a fairly quick pace. Later in question period, the member for Mill Woods, who had previously tabled copies of correspondence to the House, and which the chair had requested a copy so that the chair could see what the correspondence was about, then attempted to ask questions on the same matter. Perhaps members had missed what had been going on in the previous 2 days, and that the chair felt that the chair was constrained to deal with this issue, whether the chair wanted personally to deal with it or not. So that the first question from Edmonton Mill Woods was with regard to offering an apology to his constituent, and the request was made of the Honourable Minister. Since that matter has not been dealt with at this time and should probably be properly be dealt with under the matter of privilege, that then was also ruled out of order. Then it went further, and the chair recognized the member for Edmonton Mill Woods and saying, please supply a succinct supplementary with regard to the department. And the next question, in the opinion of the chair, did indeed deal with broader issues of the department. That's what occurred from the point of view of the chair. The chair is not interested in taking away questions, let alone them be major questions or supplementary questions from any member. But perhaps we can regard today as an interesting exercise as to how all of us will perform in a much more efficient manner. Now, to go back to the matter as raised by the member for Calgary-Buffalo, the citation which I supplied to the member in writing and a note during question period did indeed relate to not only Beauchesne 409-12, but also the Standing Order 23E. And again, to refresh the memories of all of us, with regard to Standing Order, Beauchesne 409-12, question should not anticipate a debate scheduled for the day, but should be reserved for the debate. Now, one could indeed get into the definitions of debate and so forth, and the chair has chosen to regard it that as the more than sufficient notice had been given that we were going to be dealing with privilege today, that then would be the broad sense of the term debate. With regard to Standing Order 23E, as pointed out by the Government House Leader, but the chair had also picked this up while listening to the member for Calgary-Buffalo, that the member did indeed omitted something that was on notice for consideration. It had occurred on the order paper, on the votes and proceedings, and also more than sufficient verbal notice had been given yesterday with regard to the matter. Now, that's what occurred, and therefore the chair does not intend to uphold the point of order, just having given the explanation. To go one step further, one would hope that when the matter of privilege is dealt with today, that then we can get things into such a frame of mind, or in terms of proceeding, that questions will be allowed in the very near future on this particular matter. Second point of order, the Minister of Advanced Education.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. During the question period, I rose with a point of order, the authority being, Mr. Speaker, Standing Order 23I, and indeed perhaps 23J, and even perhaps 23H. And it was, Mr. Speaker, with reference to the question from the member, the honourable member from Edmonton Mill Woods, to the Minister of Occupational Health and Safety, and contained a very serious allegation, and I quote from today's Blues, "Can't be trusted." And we can't trust him. Mr. Speaker, I think that is a very serious allegation, undoubtedly one that would, in other circumstances, certainly border on a question of privilege, a matter that I'm not prepared to pursue at this time. But, Mr. Speaker, perhaps, to the benefit of all members of the House, the matter was vindicated when you yourself, Mr. Speaker, ruled the honourable member out of order.
Member for Vegreville.
Well, Mr. Speaker, very briefly on that point of order, in terms of the member's contention that the terms "can't be trusted" violates our standing orders, I think that was a matter decided upon by the electorate on March 20th. 56% of Albertans made that decision, and we ought not to be so thin-skinned as to regard that as imputation of motive or slander against another member. But I would like to point out on the point of order raised by the member for Lethbridge West in reference to the member for Mill Woods that seeking your opinion, Mr. Speaker, would it be fair to assume that the honourable member for Mill Woods would be expected to know what purported point of privilege the member for Glengarry may or may not raise at the end of question period? It seems to me that it's the member for Glengarry's point of privilege. He knows whether he's going to raise it or not. The member for Mill Woods wasn't privy to the inner workings of the Liberal caucus, and I submit should be able to ask his questions because it's not his point of privilege.
Well, let us first deal with the point of order, let alone what this query is from the House, from the member for Vegreville. That the point of order as raised, and the comment was also made by the Minister of Advanced Education that he would not pursue it further, but see it as a gentle reminder to all members of the House that indeed one will be called to order for making allegations another member against another member, or imputes false or unavowed motives to another member. And with regard to words like mistrust or can't be trusted and so forth, as long as those occur, I suppose, within the generality of talking about a political party as a whole, that's one thing. But the moment you bring it into focus with regard to one member, you should indeed be called to order by the chair if the chair can indeed listen to you fast enough to try to cut you off. That's the first point on the point of order. Now, with respect to your inquiry, honourable member for Vegreville, as to the point of privilege, let us see what transpires, because it is indeed the intention of the chair to allow at least one or two members from each caucus to have their comments available with respect to the matter of privilege. But it must be dealt with in terms of the context of privilege as developed by the member for Edmonton Glengarry. Now, might we go to the point of privilege, and the chair recognizes the member for Edmonton Glengarry.
Mr. Speaker, you quite correctly, as have other members of the Assembly, noted that the matter of privilege is a very serious matter. I listened with interest, Mr. Speaker, to the comments made by the Honourable Minister of Public Works very soon after I entered this Assembly for the first time. If members will recall, it was that Honourable Minister's observation that all of us take an oath when we become members of this Assembly that we will uphold the laws of the province of Alberta. I think all of us, Mr. Speaker, expect that when we come into this Assembly that we will be treated equally. That's why, in fact, there is a Speaker, so that there is equality in the manner in which matters and issues are dealt with. No person should be placed in an exalted position. No person should have more authority than others in this Assembly. No person, Mr. Speaker, should be allowed to flaunt the law when all of us are, first of all, equals in this Assembly, and all of us have taken the oath of upholding the laws of our province. Now, the matter of what I now call the Spencer affair has arisen, and the evidence is clear, Mr. Speaker, from Mr. Spencer's statements that under no circumstances did he ever allow for the release of certain personal information. He never signed anything. He was never taken somewhere, as I understand it, and asked if he would agree to the release of personal information. Such was not the case. And when questions were put to the Honourable Minister who was responsible for the Workmen's Compensation Board, those answers weren't given forth quickly in the Assembly, but at a later time, a statement was issued by the Honourable Minister in which certain very personal information was included. I don't know where you could get this kind of information unless you asked Mr. Spencer for the information, or unless you had some kind of source that would give this kind of unbelievably personal information. The last paragraph of the statement made by the Honourable Minister dated June the 5th, 1989, is really an incredible personal set of facts when it reads, "It is my understanding that Mr. Spencer invested in several unsuccessful business ventures and unfortunately lost money, most of his money, in these investments." Now, where would he get this information? And that was really the purpose of attempting to extract that information, and that's why to me this is so serious, and to our party, and I think to this Assembly, so serious. Now, under the provisions of the Workers' Compensation Act, the Minister is charged with the administration of the Act, making sure that the Act operates properly, making sure that everything goes as it's supposed to go, making sure, pursuant to the oath that he gave in this Assembly, that he will uphold the laws of the province and uphold the laws particularly of the area of responsibility that he has, namely the Workmen's Compensation Board. Now, when you deal with matters of injury, when you deal, Mr. Speaker, with matters of psychology, of psychiatric issues, of medical and psychiatric issues, of anything where people are telling somebody in authority something very personal, you usually want to see some provisions where there is a protection given to that person, to that injured individual, that person that is aggrieved. And the Workers' Compensation Board gives that protection. It says that there is protection, that there is confidentiality given to a person who deals with the Workers' Compensation Board in ensuring that that information that's given to the Workers' Compensation Board will be kept confidential, that people won't be able to laugh or make judgment or do something unusual with the information that's being given. And I can't see how it could be any other way, Mr. Speaker. It has to be that way. Now, the minister clearly, by definition, right in the first or second section of the Act, says that he is responsible for the administration of the Act. He now makes it clear, Mr. Speaker, that it was he, in fact, that released the information. That's not even in question. He, I think, admits by that same statement that he has released personal and confidential information. And that's corroborated by what Mr. Spencer says. Now, somebody has contravened the provisions of the Act. The minister has the responsibility to ensure that there is confidentiality, that if somebody is breaching that confidentiality, then it's his responsibility to go to the board and say, look, there's something awry here. There's a criminal provision in the Act where a police or a legal investigation can be made, and the board can, from that information, take the appropriate criminal action. But, Mr. Speaker, it would appear from what's happened here is that the honorable minister is part of aiding and abetting in this whole process. And I say that with feeling for the individual involved here. And that's why, Mr. Speaker, when I indicated in my letter to you, a copy of which the minister has, that I would be satisfied if the honorable minister simply said, I apologize for what's been done, I would leave it. That would be the end of it. Mr. Spencer, in my conversations with him, has indicated he would be satisfied. I don't want to see a member of this House hurt by simply an error in judgment. But that hasn't happened. There was plenty of opportunity for that to take place. But still it goes without having happened. And Mr. Speaker, my argument then is this, that there can't be some members of this assembly who are more equal than others. There can't be members of this assembly who have the right to flaunt the law, to say, I won't or we won't adhere to the provisions of a certain act. If that is in fact allowed to happen, Mr. Speaker, then I am disadvantaged as an individual member of this assembly, and I think this assembly as a whole is disadvantaged because somebody is being given preferential ability to deal with the law over others. And it's on that basis that this is a serious matter, that I thought long and hard about putting the motion to you, to this House, for action. And I make it clear right now, Mr. Speaker, if the honorable minister stood up and said it was an error of judgment, there was somebody in the Workmen's Compensation Board that gave me this information, I shouldn't have received it, or I should have sought authority from permission from Mr. Spencer to release it, I would be satisfied. We would be satisfied and the matter would end. But until I hear that, the matter must be pursued, and we don't wish to be put in a lesser position than others in this assembly. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Member for Mill Woods to the general topic of privilege.
Yes, indeed, Mr. Speaker. Since Mr. Spencer is one of my constituents, I have to support the member from Glengarry and indicate that it is my belief as well that there has been a breach of the privilege of members of this assembly. I think we have to look at when one of our constituents' fundamental rights to have their records in front of this government and government agencies protected by provisions of confidentiality that are clearly spelled out in the legislation. When those are violated, by extension, they are a violation of the rights of the member who represents that constituent. And so I think those kinds of fundamental violations of workers' rights to confidentiality of their records before the Workers' Compensation Board or other agencies, but in this particular case, the Workers' Compensation Board, is a very grave and serious matter. And I think this question of privilege raises some very profound questions, Mr. Speaker, about ministerial behavior and accountability. These provisions, such as Section 141 of the Workers' Compensation Act, are there to protect injured workers, people who have confidential dealings with the government, from having that personal and confidential information exposed to their detriment. And when ministers of the Crown, employees of the departments and agencies of the governments release confidential information, they are betraying that provision for confidentiality. They are betraying a public trust, Mr. Speaker. And if we don't have trust in ministers of the Crown and a government and agencies of this government, and Mr. Speaker, we don't have very much. And this minister, along with other ministers, were sworn to uphold the law, and they cannot be seen to be and they cannot be beyond the law. They cannot have one set of rules for ministers and another for everybody else. And any member of the legislature that wants information on a constituent's file with the Workers' Compensation Board must get that in writing from the constituent, and no such authorization was obtained by the minister in this case. Mr. Speaker, as the member for Edmund Glengarry mentioned, we tried to provide an opportunity for the minister to express an apology to Mr. Spencer, to show some contrition, and he chose not to do so. And I think the gravity of the situation is such that I must urge you and encourage you to support the question of privilege that was raised by the member for Edmonton Glengarry and refer this matter to the Legislature Standing Committee on Privileges, Elections, Standing Orders and Printing for a complete and thorough review.
Member for Westlock Sturgeon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wanted to touch another aspect of the question of privileges, particularly as to Standing Orders 15, and also as Beauchesne would outline in its whole setup of actually what privilege is, Mr. Speaker, and that is the breach of rights of the Assembly, or all of us as individuals. Certainly what I think at risk here, Mr. Speaker, we try to get far enough away from individuals or constituents or anything else, is that all of us as MLAs are from time to time, no matter what side of the House we're on, called upon by some of our constituents or other people in Alberta to help solve a problem or redress or address what they think it may be a wrong at the time. And if that person, if that citizen in Alberta, in any way, shape, or form feels that he or she, when they come forward to us, and if we could try to ask the question in the House or bring some publicity onto the problem, is going to get blown out of the water by all the power and all the files and all the information that's available from the ministry that we're particularly inquiring on, certainly that's government by fear. That means we as individuals will not have people coming forward to talk to us. They'll be afraid, Mr. Speaker, and I think this is the real privilege that's at question here, in that a minister chose to use all the power at his command to, in effect, wreak retribution, you might say, on someone that was questioning, rightly or wrongly, who knows? But it's against the privilege of every member in here. It's against the privilege of the whole House, and that's one of the things I wanted to emphasize, Mr. Speaker, because if ministers can get away with lowering the boom with all the power and majesty which we have in this modern technocratic age with computers and all, then it's going to mean that every one of us are going to have our ability, our respect from the public diminished. Thank you.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. guess as I've stated to the question this afternoon, and I'll read it again, it's never my intention, never was, never will be, and hasn't been today to release any confidential information on any worker. Mr. Speaker, I'd just like to provide a little information on this because I think it's so important, because it is a matter that concerns me. Concerns me because I would like to help, and I've tried this for so long. When I met Mr. Spencer in my office, when we met him, I should say on May the 3rd, we had a good discussion. It was at that time that Mr. Spencer provided me, ourselves, a number of us in the office, the statement that he received some funds to start a business, and that business failed because he felt the Workers' Compensation Board shouldn't have provided the funds knowing his condition. He went on to talk about a number of things, about how he lost his business and things like that. And I said to Mr. Spencer to put all his concerns down in writing. Put it in writing so we could go step by step to provide him with the answers. He did come back to us some time later with 12 concerns. Those were addressed, Mr. Speaker, and I asked the Workers' Compensation Board to review those concerns, to make sure that if there was anything there that needed rectifying, needed adjustment, needed correction, it should be done. I did that because, Mr. Speaker, as I said the other day, I have a feel for the injured. I want to be, and I think I am, a caring and fair minister. I want to proceed that way through this portfolio. Mr. Spencer arrived again at our office on May the 23rd, unannounced, with a group of 7 or 8 people. And I advised that group, and it, I think, worked out well, to provide their concerns to me, to bring their concerns one-on-one so I could respond to them through the Workers' Compensation Board. Mr. Spencer was not really interested in that case, but I must say that the 7 or 8 people that did provide their concerns to us have been responded to, and in most cases, their claim, their concerns has been rectified. As I said that day, the first day I met with Mr. Spencer, the second day, the second time, the third time, the fourth time, that if the Worker Compensation Board erred, then that error would be corrected. If there was new information that could be brought forward, that information would reopen the case. Mr. Speaker, no new information was provided, but I asked the board to send Mr. Spencer's case to the appeal committee, regardless of no information. Mr. Speaker, I won't go into all the details, but as we proceeded through the days of my ministry, I kept receiving phone calls, concerns raised through the media or whatever, that we were not a caring government, we did not provide enough funds, we didn't do a number of things to help this gentleman. We were told that we had pulled back on rehab vocational training, and so all these things were bothering me. They bothered me deeply because I have a feel for the injured. I've worked a number of years in the private sector myself, and for the last 30 years I've hired people, and I've had a look at injuries, and so the concern was there. I wanted to be positive. I wanted to be real sure that the concerns raised, from whatever source that I was getting, through my colleagues, through the press, wherever, that those concerns were factual. So I asked the Workers' Compensation Board, Mr. Speaker, to provide me with information that could be made public, not confidential information such as doctors' reports and things like that, but information that would correct the misunderstanding, the distortions that were about. And I received from the Workers' Compensation Board a document that outlined, in contrary to what I was getting from both Mr. Spencer and others, information. I was asked again, why don't you do something for this gentleman? And I said, we have. I was questioned. As a matter of fact, as the honourable member for Millwood said, it got down to where I wasn't telling the truth. And Mr. Speaker, that bothered me. It bothered me so much that I thought, well, let's get this out. It's public knowledge. It was in the press. It was stated in a number of cases. I provided that statement that I received to the public to make sure that the facts were out. Mr. Speaker, was it an error in judgment, as a member for Glengarry has stated? Well, maybe it was, Mr. Speaker, because of my concern for the injured. I was so involved in trying to help. My advice was not heeded, was not wanted. The help from Workers' Compensation Board was not heeded and was not accepted. And question again says, was it an error? Well, I don't know. Mr. Speaker, I guess that's for the House to decide. But I was trying to do the right things for the injured people. Should I apologize for the Workers' Compensation Board? Well, I have no difficulty with that. If laying out the facts in some way did something to somebody that it shouldn't have done, then I can apologize, because I don't think it should happen. It shouldn't happen to injure anybody. And Mr. Speaker, that to suggest that I flaunted the law, to suggest that I was wrong in what I was doing, I don't think is accurate. Because what I was trying to do is correct the misinformation, the distortion that was out there, to make sure that the people that were reading these documents, were getting this information, would know the facts. So, Mr. Speaker, I'll leave it in your hands. I have a number of things I could say, and if it goes on, Mr. Speaker, to whatever course of action you decide to take, I'll respond again. Thank you.
The chair must first ask the minister, that one did hear the word apology in there on behalf of the board?
Mr. Speaker, I suggested if I have to apologize for the actions of the WCB, I have no difficulty with that.
Thank you. Member for Edmonton Highlands.
Mr. Speaker, I don't believe that the foregoing from the minister is appropriate under the circumstances. What he has just provided us with is the sort of defense that one would ordinarily take as evidence if the matter was referred to the Privileges and Elections Committee. He has not argued whether or not a matter of privilege has occurred. I would argue that it has, Mr. Speaker. I would point to Section 141 specifically of the Workers' Compensation Act for the benefit of someone who doesn't understand inclusive language. And I would also point out that it is a specific rule of the board that members of this assembly or their delegates, ordinarily staff members, must have written permission to even look in the files of any claimant at the WCB. Without that written consent from the claimant, we are not allowed to even look in the file, Mr. Speaker. And therein lies the breach of privilege, I would argue. It is clear, I believe, from Section 141 of the Act itself that the minister has no authority to do so without the written permission of the client, and worse yet, has no authority to divulge information so garnered without that permission to anyone. So I would argue, in fact, that there is a two-step breach of privilege under the circumstances. Now, if it were not the case that the WCB exercises the rule uniformly, if in fact there was any question about the agency sometimes applying the rule for written consent and sometimes not, I believe that the minister may have a valid case for declaring himself not to have breached a privilege of the House. Our research indicates that that rule is applied uniformly, and it would appear that the exception was exercised in this case and in the case of a ministerial request. We believe that that is in violation of the Act itself, and that this further violates not only the privileges of all members of this Assembly, in that rules are to be applied uniformly, but also violates the privilege of an individual who doesn't have the power of sitting in this Assembly to argue for himself on the basis of his entitlement to confidentiality. I do appreciate that if the issue is handed over to the Privileges and Elections Committee, that his evidence may be taken into account. But at this point, I believe that responsible legislators must also speak for his rights. This is an individual who, after all, like all individuals, has the rights to confidentiality under our laws and those which govern our country and our Commonwealth. So, Mr. Speaker, I would argue that the comments from the minister, whether or not they include an apology, and I'm quite convinced that they do not include an apology, do not constitute an argument against this matter being handed over to the Committee on Privileges and Elections.
Thank you. Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, in dealing with matters of privilege, as all members have quite correctly pointed out, it must be matters of privilege are serious issues and should only be raised under appropriate circumstances. The alleged breach of privilege, one would assume, although it has not been, in my view, precisely and clearly stated to the Assembly, is to the effect that the minister has breached the privileges of the Assembly in his capacity as minister by violating in some way a statute of this Assembly as it has impacted upon an individual in our society. And the only citation that has been referred for consideration as to a breach of confidentiality is Section 141 of the Workers' Compensation Act. That is the only statutory provision that has been put before your Mr. Speaker, for consideration. And I'm not, I think I should read it into the record. I would assume that it is Section 141, subsection 2, which is being referred to. Subsection 1, I'll read that in too. No member, officer, employee of the board and no person authorized to make an investigation under this Act shall, except in the performance of his duties or under the authority of the board, divulge or allow to be divulged any information obtained by him in making the investigation or that comes to his knowledge in connection with the investigation. That's subsection 1. Well, the investigation, Mr. Speaker, leading up to the payment of funds to this individual was completed, obviously, and so far as has been alleged in the information before the House, there's been no divulgence of information contained in the investigation that has been specifically alleged. Subsection 2 provides that no member or officer or employer of the board shall divulge information respecting a worker or the business of an employer that is obtained by him in his capacity as a member, officer, or employee unless it is divulged under the authority of the board to the persons directly concerned or to agencies or departments of the Government of Canada, the Government of Alberta, or another province. I would think subsection 3 is relevant, but you can take that under consideration, Mr. Speaker. Well, what in that section indicates that any information relative to a decision made by a board relative to a payment of funds to an injured worker can only be released by the Government of Alberta with the consent of the person involved. A clear reading of that section does not indicate that at all. and that case has not been made out. Rather vague references have been made to the necessity of a person who has received compensation consenting to the release of that information has been made by an argument in the House, but it is not in the words I've read into the legislature this afternoon. And I'm sure Your Honor would want to take, Mr. Speaker, would want to take this under consideration before ruling on the matter, but I would think that one would have to read with some precision this issue in conjunction with the actual wording of the statute, because there is no, in my view, Mr. Speaker, no impediment in that section of the Workers' Compensation Act upon the release by the Government of Alberta of information with regard to the level of compensation provided to workers as a result of workers' compensation proceedings. And it's that precise issue, I think, which must be determined as Mr. Speaker considers the matter of privilege now before the Assembly.
Okay. Honourable members, that's sufficient discussion with regard to privilege. There's not the possibility for the member for Edmonton Glengarry to make a summation in response. It's the matter, and we've had 2 speakers from each of the caucuses. And so it is that the chair does indeed take the matter under advisement and will report back to the Assembly at the earliest possible moment.
And I wonder if I could just ask a question to clarify the matter, because in my letter to you that you requested, I made it clear that if there was an apology, I would end the matter and finish the matter. I don't wish to waste your time or more time of this Assembly, and I'm reading from my friends nearby that they would do the same. I think we're almost there, Mr. Speaker. If I could clarify it, if the minister could clarify it, I think this matter could be ended. The issue wasn't an apology for him to apologize for what the department did. It is, in fact, sir, a request that he apologize for his actions, because it's the actions of the House that we're talking about. I think we're so close, Mr. Speaker, that the matter could be ended now if the honourable minister could address it in terms of specificity.
Chair takes that as a point of order. Perhaps the honourable minister would care to respond.
Mr. Speaker, as I've stated, I guess if you tell the truth, is that a crime? And I've thought about that, and I say that because as a young lad, my mother taught me to tell the truth, and she said, even if it hurts, to tell the truth. But if it would satisfy the House, Mr. Speaker, if it would satisfy everybody, then I have no difficulty in saying that I'll apologize for the Workers' Compensation Board and for myself, if I and for myself, Mr. Speaker, if I in fact err.
Thank you.
Speaker, based on that, I'm prepared to withdraw my notice of motion. I made it clear, and I have to live to the commitment that I made to you and the honourable member, that if there was an apology, and I consulted with Mr. Spencer when I wrote that line into my letter, and that's important here because it's Mr. Spencer's rights that we're talking about. I'm satisfied. I think Mr. Spencer is satisfied, and I think the House should end it now. I withdraw my notice of motion.
Thank you. On this point of order, Honour.
Mr. Speaker, I'm quite prepared to let this case drop, but I want to know what the rules are in the workers' compensation at some point, and I would like you to even if this is dropped with the particular minister, I certainly want to know what the rules are in terms of confidentiality, and if there is a problem, then we better be back at this legislature bringing in some new legislation then, Mr. Speaker.
Hear, hear.
The chair interprets what has happened in this matter. To go in reverse order, the concern is raised by the Leader of the Opposition, will now be able to be addressed through the normal matter of question period or correspondence or discussion with the Honourable Minister or the Premier, that matter, with regard to that total issue. The member for Edmonton Glengarry has accepted the words of the Honourable Minister of Occupational Health and Safety as being a full apology with respect to the issue. The Chair thanks both the Honourable Minister for his graciousness in offering that apology, and also thanks the Honourable Member for Edmonton Glengarry in accepting the apology in a similarly gracious manner. Therefore, rather than have the point of privilege withdrawn, the matter ceases because of the apology given and received. And the Chair thanks all honourable members in the House. The clock has moved, so now it's past 4:30. And according to our own standing orders, we should now go immediately to debating a private member's bill. With the unanimous consent of the House, we could entertain other business with going back to what would be the normal floor of business of the day. So the Chair awaits some direction from the Government House Leader.